They were born beneath ceilings of gold, surrounded by velvet, mirrors, and the scent of power. But behind every crown lies a graveyard of secrets. The royal families of Europe, the so-called chosen by God, were often little more than beautifully dressed monsters. Their palaces, dripping with chandeliers and whispers, were prisons of bloodlines, where cousins married cousins to preserve purity, and madness became a family heirloom. The throne wasn't a seat of power, it was a curse, wrapped in silk and crowned with rot. Generations of ambition turned dynasties into experiments of flesh. To protect their sacred lineage, kings and queens traded their children like currency. Daughters were sold for alliances, sons molded into heirs before they could speak. The same faces haunt the portraits that hang in forgotten galleries. Eyes too close together, jaws heavy and twisted, skin pale as wax. The Habsburg jaw, the Romanov melancholy, the Bourbon vanity, each deformity a signature of divine right, warped into madness. Inside gilded walls, love was rumor and duty a sentence. A prince's smile was rehearsed, a queen's silence demanded. Children were raised by courtiers, not mothers. To show emotion was weakness, to love betrayal. Behind the ceremony, paranoia reigned. Courtiers spied, lovers plotted, and family ties became weapons. Every cradle, chapel, and ballroom echoed with fear. Religion sanctified the sickness. They believed themselves chosen by heaven. Yet when plague or insanity struck, priests whispered of punishment and doctors bled them dry. In candlelit chapels, kings begged forgiveness only to sin again by sunrise. The cross they clutched for comfort became their curse, a symbol of divine cruelty disguised as grace. In France, Versailles gleamed like paradise but reeked of decay. Courtiers killed with perfume, queens starved while kings feasted. In Russia, the Romanovs ruled through ice and myth, and in Austria, the Habsburgs sat like gods upon mountains, veins thick with the blood of their own kin. Europe glittered like a crown of jewels, but up close each gem was cracked and red with history. Behind every portrait lay corruption. Servants vanished for overhearing truths. Queens bled in secret, their stillborn heirs called God's will. The same hands that blessed nations signed death warrants without pause. Their beauty was embalmed in oil and canvas, while their souls rotted in silence. Even their children bore the curse. Princes learned to command before they could love. Princesses were traded like offerings. Those who dared to follow their hearts were erased from history, their names forbidden, their faces burned from family portraits. But blood remembers. Madness and sorrow resurfaced through generations, ghosts wearing crowns of gold. And when the people rose, when revolutions thundered and the guillotine sang, the royals died in disbelief. They could not understand how their divine right had turned to dust. Beneath the blade, their divinity bled like any other. Still, the myth survives. We watch royal weddings and marvel at palaces, pretending not to hear the echoes, the prayers unanswered, the footsteps of the condemned, the laughter of the damned. Because the legacy of royalty is not one of glory, but of decay. Power mistaken for divinity always demands a sacrifice. Behind every crown lies blood. Behind every throne, a shadow waits for its next heir. And no one wears a crown without paying in flesh or soul for the privilege to rot beneath it. The deeper you look, the more the rot spreads. Behind the velvet curtains of power and gold, Europe's royal families built empires not just on bloodlines, but on lies, sickness, and sin. This is not the fairy tale history they teach in school. This is dark royal history, where perfume hides decay, crowns conceal madness, and divine right becomes a curse passed down through generations. In the glittering court of France, Louis XIV, the Sun King, drowned himself in luxury and fragrance. He bathed in perfume to hide the stench of infection and rot that filled Versailles. His courtiers followed his lead, masking disease with roses and musk, until the palace reeked of death dressed as beauty. But the illusion could not last. By the time his descendants inherited the throne, the French monarchy had become a theater of delusion, dancing through debt, denial, and decadence. Marie Antoinette's powdered smiles couldn't hide the truth. The empire was rotting from within. And when the people finally rose, the guillotine became the new crown, slicing through centuries of arrogance in a single, merciless sweep. Across Europe, the disease of power spread like a plague. In Russia, the Romanovs clung to divine tradition even as their empire crumbled. Their palaces glittered with gold, yet beneath the chandeliers lurked whispers of doom. The royal children were sick, victims of hemophilia, the so-called royal disease. Blood that wouldn't clot became a metaphor for a dynasty bleeding out. Rasputin, the dark mystic, the holy man who whispered in the night, promised healing and salvation. But his presence only deepened the curse. The Romanovs, once worshipped as God's chosen, became prisoners of their own faith, sealing their fate in a basement where the echo of bullets replaced the sound of prayer. And then there was England, the empire that claimed to rule the world. Behind the polished manners and sacred rituals of the British monarchy lay centuries of betrayal, repression, and secret suffering. Queens wept behind iron masks of protocol, their emotions suffocated by duty. Kings took lovers in candlelit shadows, their scandals buried beneath layers of etiquette. Madness ran through the Windsor line like a silent inheritance, from George III's insanity to the quiet despair of princesses and princes trapped in golden cages. Even today, the royal family remains haunted by its own history, its scandals, its tragedies, its ghosts walking through the halls of Buckingham Palace. This is the untold truth behind the crown. Royal bloodlines were never pure. They were poisoned. Centuries of intermarriage turned palaces into laboratories of degeneration. Fragile bodies, unstable minds, hearts blackened by power. Behind every diamond tiara was a trail of disease, deceit, and death. These kings and queens were not divine. They were human experiments of their own making. While the world worshipped their portraits, those painted smiles were masks for despair. Underneath the silk and jewels lay the worms of corruption, a legacy of incest, paranoia, and obsession. Monarchs who believed themselves chosen by God were, in truth, prisoners of their own myths. And their people paid the price, through war, famine, and endless suffering in the name of royal glory. This is not just history, it's horror. A real-life royal horror story where beauty hides decay, and the price of power is madness itself. These are the dark secrets of the royal families of Europe, France, Russia, England, each consumed by the same disease, the worship of their own image. The deeper we dig into the archives, the clearer it becomes. Beneath every crown lies a coffin. The perfume has faded, the gold has tarnished, and all that remains is the rot of human pride, embalmed in history and mistaken for glory. Because the truth about royalty is this: they were never gods. They were monsters wearing crowns. But remember, behind every portrait gilded in gold lies a truth too dark to frame. The crowns may glitter, but their shine is only borrowed from centuries of suffering, betrayal, and blood. The royal legacy isn't one of glory, it's one of ghosts. And though time has washed their castles clean, the echoes still whisper through the halls of history. If you've made it this far into the shadows, thank you for watching. If you felt the chill of truth tonight, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and step deeper into the darkness, because the story doesn't end here.